Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you so much for having me. And welcome to the second session for today. So we're talking about reimagining marketing for recovery, right? And that's a really interesting topic because I consider myself a marketer of the future. And I'm also an avid traveler myself, so I'm really, really excited about today's topic. And I'm hoping to at least inspire a few interesting thoughts and bring that back to the panel session in just a few minutes. So why are we talking about reimagined marketing for recovery? Well, because of all the reasons you've already heard today, with lots of really great insights and apparently very good projects coming up, which I'm hoping will actually resonate really well. So why do we actually need to consider that, and why is it so important? Well, recent studies, and we've seen quite a few today already, but like an Expedia survey, for example, actually dubbed 2022 as the year of the bucket list, and stating that 65% of respondents are planning to go big, meaning there is now a wave of new people out there actually thinking through. During the last 2 years, I made this list of all the great places that I wanted to visit and where I want to go. Now, finally, the barriers are less or easier to overcome. And now I can actually go out there and travel and do all the great things. So now is the time to really define that one very specific goal for all of us. I think that's the one goal. Putting Singapore on that bucket list, right? Be the #1 destination where everyone wants to visit at least once, if not come back, stay longer, make it a really nice experience. As we heard, that is important. And is this moving? There we go. So I think it shouldn't be that hard, right? That's the question. It shouldn't be that hard. Why is it so hard? Over the last 2 years, as an industry, the industry has adopted and evolved already. All of the rewards programs, of the loyalty programs, all of that has been taken care of, and the points are still there. Customers can come back, no problem. Contact experiences have been integrated. We all use QR codes as if it's just another day. And like restaurant industry and the hospitality industry has reinvented what it truly means to, fine dining or meeting and gathering with friends and families in these sort of weird times. So it shouldn't be that hard, but the reality is, it's not about the QR codes and it's not about the check-ins. That is not the challenge by any means. I believe that at the very least, you have to really consider the pandemic changed people. Truly, we're stuck at home essentially for the last 2 years, if not longer at times, and in varying levels and situations. So it really changed how we think about ourselves. I know that of myself, I'm sure others will too. It truly changed our interactions, our behavior, and our expectations, right? So some of us have working from home and may never return to a work environment as we know it. 9 to 5 has become something entirely different, and we just consider work-life balance something entirely different. So we're redefining what certain elements mean to us. And we've discovered new hobbies, new interests, new entire views of everything that surrounds us and how we feel about things. Everything changed, and a new traveler persona has emerged. So, and now what does it mean for us as marketers specifically? When we're thinking about content creation, right, and we're thinking about pushing out marketing materials and advertising in order to cut through the noise and then make the destination truly come to life through great marketing material, hopefully. The problem is that, especially over the last 2 years, digital media consumption increased dramatically. Definitely not a surprise, but it truly happened. And people have been binge watching their favorite Netflix streams and TV shows, and it's just been so much content out there. So how do you even get through that, especially if you're a smaller business? Not everyone has the $1 million budget, so what do? In my opinion, it would be great and recommended if you don't have to think always about the money and how you're paying for all the advertising, but sometimes also the content is key, right? It's still very much king, like the saying goes. And there's a strong element of getting the storytelling right. And I think there were quite a few examples today that we've heard about where there's lots of opportunity to really think about what great storytelling could look like for Singapore to make it a very unique experience for the user to receive that information. One thing is always good to point out that a lot of the channels have also changed, right? We're not just talking about content anymore that we're producing and distributing. We're also talking about the various channels where people are engaging with us and keep reconnecting and why they keep coming back and what they want to see on which channel and why and which format, right? All the marketing details. So the one thing to consider is there's so many different channels out there that keep constantly changing, and maybe something over the last 2 years has also changed in your marketing funnel. So maybe it's time to really evaluate which of the channels are still interesting, will be needed. Maybe, it used to be Facebook, and now clearly it's TikTok has taken over the world, truly. So there's something to be considered about changing the way we look at media. And then on the flip side of the coin, something I know is a sore subject for many performance marketers specifically, but when you're looking at data tracking capabilities, right? You're not just putting out the content for nothing, you also want to track on the other side of it, and you want to measure what happens when someone clicks through. Did we get the sale? Did someone convert? So all of that is unfortunately also changing, as again, technology is changing all the time. So we know that globally over 40% of people already use ad blockers. That's not a new scenario, but it keeps increasing. And one of the many other challenges that we keep going at is also Google and other partners discontinuing the traditional cookie treatment, how we're tracking and how we're actually marketing and how we're serving ads to people on social platforms. So one of or three of the most prominent trends that I have seen that actually work or that are worth looking into, not necessarily immediately, but maybe in the future, in the coming months, and maybe in a year from now, 2 years from now, is to look at the zero-party data. If you no longer have access to third-party data, what other alternatives are there? There certainly are some. So rise of zero-knowledge proof technology, also something that comes with the increase of Web3 and blockchain-enabled technology. Something to look into as far as, from the user experience, how much data are you willing to share with the platform, with a provider or a company, and how much trust can you build as far as I'm sharing something, what will I get, what's the value? So something to consider is the customer relationship you're building as you're sharing that data and what it is that you're getting back. And then also very interestingly, just a trend that is also has a huge impact on the actual user experience, I think, or can have a true impact, is Face ID and fingerprints, right? Something that we already do. How can that be implemented in a user experience in a creative way? So something to consider over the coming months. And then it wouldn't be a future forward presentation if I wouldn't call out the immediate buzzwords that everyone has probably to certain degrees has heard of, and that is Web3 and the metaverse. One thing out of the gate, we're not in the metaverse yet. It doesn't exist, and it's going to take a very, very long time, decades actually, to get there. However, the building blocks are already there, right? We already know it's happening for sure. Web3 is the next iteration of the internet. It's happening, it's coming. And today, brands and companies and organizations, platforms are building those frameworks, and they're trying to figure out and test and learn what that means. That not every company needs to be part of that, but it's certainly something to consider and just to keep an eye out and to be educated about. So today we're just seeing many basic platforms, but 2025 we're definitely assuming that everyone is going to use non-fungible tokens on their mobile phone. There's going to be a blockchain wallet on every phone in this room by 2025, I guarantee. And then decades out, like 20, 30 years, we're probably going to see the scenario that everyone assumes of as, we're putting the virtual headset on and we're seeing this super cool, persistent, social engagement scenario. So decades out, but something to definitely keep an eye out and just keep educating yourself on. And just a reminder, you're not the only ones, right? There's many other companies, new partners, new vendors, new platforms that are actually already actively engaging in this space. I'm not going to go into deeper into this slide because it's just too much, but just something to consider as you're educating yourself. Where do you fall in these categories? What is your part? Is it maybe the infrastructure? Is it a branded experience to keep people engaged and interested, right? Or is it something entirely different? And so now how do you actually adjust to those changes and implement and integrate new great ideas in the long run? I like to say, and that's again not something new, but it's you meet the customers, you meet the consumers where they already are with those changed expectations. So right now that could truly mean if you're in the hospitality service, what about if a hotel doubled as a co-working space? If I'm already going on a business trip and maybe I want to take my family, maybe I want to take my dog, maybe I want to take my kids, can I also take my screens and have it be arranged in a nice hotel room? Is there an option to even do that? And why not, right? So just rethinking where we are in this time, what our needs are, and how we can match that. And then also, again, going back to the data-driven platforms and everything about, as we all care about measuring results. In the near term, also thinking about, maybe there's something about convenience and the privacy that we can offer and the information that we offer in order to communicate that. So what if there was one platform, one app, where everyone could log in and they could actually just pre-select everything from transportation to their amenities to any circumstance they truly wanted in one stop, right? And what if those travelers were then actually able to not just give all the information and data to get that personalized experience, but we're very selective about the information they can share and feel more trusted with that platform and build their relationships. So again, something to consider, just to build long-term relationships. And then thinking about long-term, obviously the immersive space is going to increasingly expand. So how we shop, how we entertain, how we game, how we celebrate, where we meet our people, right? How we come together and what it is that we enjoy will change over time for sure. So there is the opportunity right now to already, play with extended reality and augmented reality and creatively think through what content needs to look like in order to cut through the noise. That could be now, this could be 3 years from now, but it's certainly something to consider as a new marketing ecosystem as it evolves. So I want to get one more slide into that specifically talks about Web3 and immersive experience. It's just because it's two really good examples that just show how brands and how organizations can already start just dipping their toes, right? It doesn't need to be big. Sometimes it's a turnkey program, advertising program. Sometimes it's true investment in building something great. But in this case, for example, Samsung, I was lucky enough to work with them in the US on this project, but they just wanted to recreate what the Samsung brand means in Decentraland, which is one of those virtual worlds, Web3 enabled. And we gave them the opportunity to truly reinvent a story and have in a minute a short little scissor reel that shows the experience, truly what it meant to be interactive in their spaces, to create an avatar and to walk around and to be part of a party and to get some NFTs as rewards. So there's lots of opportunity. And then also to mention the Korea Tourism Organization, just a great example of yet another organization who just understood interest of users where they already are on a platform like Zapato, and then understand, okay, what do they want? They did a survey prior to the activation, so they understood those are key elements they want. Okay, let's combine those. Find the connectors. Here's something we have to give, and here's the audience, how we can reconnect that, and keep engaging and keep, feeling that funnel through. Stop the video there, but just to give you a sneak peek into the integration and into the experience. This was timed around a specific event, so there was lots of very specific elements from the physical and the virtual world connected, but that's just one of many opportunities that brands are looking into and testing and learning from. So, but just to recap what I really ran through today with lots of varying different topics here, just to keep in mind, there is opportunity in the media to already think through what content needs to look like. Is it the format that needs to change? Maybe it's the channel. Maybe let's rethink how we're approaching and who we're pulling in. Is it the social media influencer from the local shop? Or is it the celebrity, right? Like what truly speaks to the audience and can be implemented to make this as useful and as engaging as possible. And then in the near term, obviously, technology will always keep evolving. So it's time to just rethink what can we either educate ourselves on already or need to adjust in a couple months or years from now. What do we know is coming and what needs to change, especially as it comes to data privacy and security in general, right? That's always going to be a continuous question from the consumer. And then in the long run, there is no question Web3 is happening. So how can you challenge the barriers of existing Web 2 environments? So does it mean, for example, you show up as a metaverse brand? Is it a 3D brand? Like what does that even mean? What does it look like? I believe we heard earlier in the day that there is elements already in the works that might be helpful there, but also to rethink what blockchain actually does to your business. What will it affect? Which areas need to maybe adjust it already? and where does it truly have an impact? So with that, I'm going to leave it here and just say thank you so much for having me again. And I believe we're ready for the panel.
Thank you, Ms. Berger, for setting the context for the session. Please remain on stage and take a seat over here. Now, allow me to introduce our moderator for this session, Mr. Chang Chi-pei, Assistant Chief Executive, Marketing Group, Singapore Tourism Board. And with him today, we have Mr. Arthur Keong, CEO, Far East Hospitality, Mr. Benjamin Tan, Deputy CEO, Mandai Wildlife Group, and Mr. Ken Mendel, Regional Managing Director of Grab. I'll now hand the time over to Mr. Chi-pei.
Thanks, Jens. Thank you. I think Jessica really brought us on a whirlwind tour of issues that today's marketers grapple with, such as with the limited budget that we have, right? How do we prioritize the work that we need to do today in order to recover the business while keeping an eye on what's on the horizon, both in the near term as well as the longer term? So with us to discuss these issues, I think we have a very distinguished panel of leaders from the tourism industry. I first just really want to start off with a high-level question. COVID has really brought tremendous disruptions to travel and also surfaced emerging trends, such as consumers and countries learn to live with the virus. I think every day we have been told about how the consumer behavior has changed because of COVID. Can I really just pick the brains of the panelists? Just, in your opinion, what is that one travel trend that has been shaped by changes in consumer behavior that will have long-term implications for the travel industry? Maybe I can start off with Ken.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, by the way. Maybe I'll just reframe it a little bit, because I think what's really happened during the pandemic is an acceleration of digital transformation, right? And we all know that. So I'm not going to go there, but it's important to set that baseline, because I think Microsoft CEO said it best when he said, we have basically accelerated 2 years and 2 months. And so when you think of travel, what we're seeing now is when people go on business trips, they're also thinking, well, I can work from home, I can work from anywhere, so I'm going to extend my business trip. I'm going to spend a couple of days, perhaps, being a tourist. So you're starting to see these hybrid road warriors that are business travelers, but they're also, consumer tourist travelers. And I think the industry is going to have to cater to that. I think, Jessica talked about it a little bit, and other panelists have also hinted at this. And that's going to be different, because those folks, how do you find them, right? How do you identify who is a hybrid warrior? And I think data is going to become quite important. And that's where we're seeing all sorts of insights on how to find these folks, because what happens is, if you think about it, you take a Grab to an airport, right? And then you fly off, let's say, to Vietnam from Singapore, or you can go Vietnam to Singapore, either way. And then what we see is interesting behavior, right? You go to the 5-star hotel for your business trip, but you might check into the 4-star for the tourism part of your trip. You go to the office 3 days, and then you're going to the Cuchi tunnels. And so it's interesting to see these patterns and how you're going to actually engage with these new breed of travelers.
Thanks, Ken. I just want to add on to your point that some companies around the world right now are starting to introduce work anywhere, remote working arrangements, right? So for example, Publicis, I think they've just launched their Work Your World program, where I think their employees can spend up to 4 weeks a year in any of the locations where Publicis have an office, right? I think this definitely have implications for destinations, because it allows us to attract a segment of travelers who can potentially stay for a much longer time in the destination. So maybe just moving on to Ben, on your take about the one travel trend that you think will have long-term impact for travel.
Perhaps I could start with seconding what Ken just said, because through the pandemic, what some of our colleagues have found is that The zoo is actually quite a good place to work, as in not in the sun, but in the shade, in front of the amenity tank. It's well shaded, it's quite conducive, it's quite therapeutic, right? You are very relaxed, it's easy to get in the zone, you're focused. And progressively, we do see people with scribble pads, clearly not there to see animals, but to be in the environment, in an environment that displaces them and facilitates creativity. But the trend that we are really keeping a close watch on as an organization is the acceleration in consciousness around sustainability, which has been mentioned multiple times today. This really started as a bit of, years ago from a more fringe, almost disruptive basis from, things like the global climate strike, Extinction Rebellion. But through the COVID era is when we think it is really, really mainstreaming. We see that most recently in the budget speeches, what's been debated in Parliament. Closer to home, the best-selling car model is the Tesla tree. How bizarre is that? At our parks and the precinct and our retail, we see a pronounced shift in the merchandising mix in terms of what people prefer to buy, right? In terms of what people buy towards merchandising that are actually sustainable or actually with a higher content of recycled material. When we do our EDMs, right, when we hero with a sustainable related campaign, it has higher click-through rates, higher open rates. So the trend is real and it is accelerating, it is pronounced. Our employees demand it, our shareholders ask for it. I'm really gratified to hear about the Sustainable Tourism Program because that's something that I think will only pick up along the way. If I could just share one tidbit. We as an organization embarked on this probably about 7 years ago. And when our F&B outlets started insisting on a sustainable menu and getting rid of plastic waste, we had this shift from, at the beginning, customers who didn't understand, how come y'all got no straw? I want my plastic straw, right? To a place that, and now people actually welcome it, right? People actually welcome it. When we serve laksa without cockles, right? Because some of us may not be aware, there's no such thing as sustainable ham, right? When you tell people that, they actually, oh, really? Maybe next time I won't order, right? So it's actually quite a change that we're seeing, and we think that this will only accelerate over time.
Thank you, Ben. Someone once described driving a Tesla as sitting on a sofa, driving a sofa with an iPad. My reply to that is must be a really expensive sort of sofa. Maybe back to Arthur. Again, what's that one thing that you think we need to keep an eye on?
Well, one thing that I think we were very surprised with is how well hotel experiences have managed to resonate with the staycation market. And I have to eat my hat because I thought that it would be very, very difficult to actually sustain profitability with such a small domestic demand. But it's surprising that the hotel branded experiences really resonated with the market. I think catering to a local staycation market is incredibly difficult. And what we've learned through these hotel experiences is now able to adapt and apply as the market opens up for foreign customers. Just to give you a couple of examples, we have a Barracks Hotel in Sentosa. The Barracks Hotel creates a lot of content that is done by the hotel itself in order to entertain people who are here on staycation. Same with the Clan Hotel that we've done. We created stories around the precinct. And the experiences that is done by the hotel is about what you can do within the hotel. It is quite different from experiences that you are kind of adapting to do what you can to entertain people outside the hotel. Now, activities outside the hotel for some reason don't do as well, but the activities that the hotel create within the hotel does extremely well. So that is something that we did not kind of anticipated, and that is actually very interesting because the people in the hoteling business is in the services business. We're not in the experience creation business, as what Glenn had alluded to in the earlier plenary session. But we find that when we do bar making sessions or when we curate a veterans tour, in the case of the Barracks Hotel, that resonates extremely well. And people are prepared to pay a huge premium for it. So I think this particular trend will endure even when Singapore reopens. And we're going to certainly test it out with our foreign guests when they stay with us.
Thanks, Arthur. Just rounding up, rounding back to the point that Ben was making about sustainability, right? As you've heard, we've launched the TSP program. I want to really get your sensing. How much does consumers care about sustainability today? And whether or not are they prepared to pay extra for those experiences? Just maybe some quick reaction.
I'm not sure if they are prepared to pay extra, but they will certainly give you hell if you don't practice good sustainability practices. I think you're going to be a pariah rather than... So the penalty for not doing it is actually higher. I'm not sure if they will actually reward you for doing it. I think it's becoming expected.
Is there anything that you think tourism brands and companies can do to really make consumers open up their wallets to spend extra on what they deem to be a sustainable experience?
Well, one of the ideas that, if you don't mind, just jump in here. One of the ideas that we can kill two birds with one stone that we are experimenting, we hope others can come on board, is to actually involve our customers in the sustainability effort by saying, would you give up housekeeping for a day? If you are prepared to give up housekeeping for a day, whatever we save on housekeeping, we'll plant a tree in your name. And so far, the idea seems like a good one. A lot of people seem to like it. We haven't really tested it yet with the foreign customers because we don't have too many of them. And we haven't quite worked out all the logistics, but it serves two problems. We do have a manpower constraint issue. So whatever we can save in housekeeping services, we'll welcome it. And to plant a tree in someone's name is something that is a fun thing to do. So it might actually work.
Thank you. Ben, what about?
I think it's really important for organizations to do what comes naturally to you in terms of not trying to be something that you're not, right? So as an organization, we play quite a long-standing role in public education, not just with kids, but also with youth. We prepare interpretives that educate about the real threat of extinction of species. And what we have done through the period of the pandemic is that we have leveraged these skills and the channels that we have to do best practice sharing on sustainability. Right? We have actually, where corporates engage us, our corporate customers, events, corporate sales, our sponsors, we do a fair amount of best practice sharing on some of the practices and the trade-offs that we have evaluated over time as an organization and what it means. And I think it's really important to do this in an authentic way and to be quite disciplined about it, because the segment of the population that will be most passionate in supporting and amplifying your message are also the ones that will really take you to task if what you're doing is greenwashing, right? So if it's just a matter of attaching a label that's empty underneath, there's a very real possibility of being taken to task. Right. So I think from our perspective is we think it's really important to get started first internally without talking too much about it, but also equally important to engage with the market, to engage with customers at a time when we're good and ready.
Yeah. You know, I think there's a misconception sometimes that Southeast Asians don't care about the environment. So we did a study, right, and 71% of Singaporeans care about climate change. And then we thought, okay, what can we do? Because obviously riding in a car and the whole transportation industry and travel, there's an impact on the environment for sure. So if you want to offset every single ride you do on Grab, there's a little toggle. If you go into Grab app and you go to your account, go to the bottom of that menu, there's a menu item, I think second from the bottom, that says support the environment. And then every ride you take, you contribute 10 cents. That goes to a fund to basically promote sustainability. We partnered with SemCorp on this, and what we've realized is that people do care about climate change. They care about the environment. It's a misnomer that Southeast Asians don't care, but you have to give them tools and ways to participate in a meaningful way. And I agree that Arthur's point is interesting, is that they care but they don't want to pay. I think that's an evolutionary process. More and more people are starting to pay, but you have to give them like a way to pay that's not going to hurt the pocketbook, but allows them to feel part of the solution than part of the problem.
Yeah. Jessica, just to come back to you, I mean, as a traveler to Singapore, did you take extra effort in terms of finding out some of the sustainable experiences that we have in Singapore? And how do you think we can make that more visible and more discoverable for global travelers like yourself?
In more places. I think, I mean, obviously, I came from the US to Singapore, so there's quite the distance. And it's in the US, we tend to be very US-centric. We don't look a lot to other places. But for that reason, I think being able to be visible in many places on many different channels and hearing different voices about different topics and just being part of the conversation is so, so crucial. And also just utilizing technology where possible. Obviously, that's something that's true to my heart. But I think there is truly an opportunity for Singapore to stand out. The reputation is already there. I think it's just a matter of reconnecting to that and truly making a stand there.
Thanks, Jessica. Ken, we want to move to a slightly different topic about the cookieless future, right? I know you started a lot of your career was spent on digital marketing. You used to hate XM, right? So what is the kind of advice that you will give to the travel industry right now as they grapple with what's going to happen in 2-3 years down the road, as perhaps some of these cookie functions that they are used to might be switched off by some of the tech players, right?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I think to set the context and so everyone's aware of what's happening is the cookie is going away, and the cookie has been very useful in terms of tracking consumers to understand their preferences, what sites they're browsing, and of course the travel industry has been a benefactor of this because it's really about conversion, right? Does your advertising drive a room night, a trip, etc.? And as the cookie goes away, there's going to be challenges to that. And also on the other side of that is Apple's move towards protecting consumer privacy. And Google is following suit with something that is going to remove, like mobile apps don't have cookies. So a lot of folks were like, I don't need to worry about this because Asia is mobile first, I use an app, my business supports an app, and I don't have to worry. Actually, unfortunately, you do have to worry. Because Apple's move is this do not track. So you'll notice now when you go and download an app or using an app, it will say, do you want this app to track you? The majority of consumers say no way. So whether it's cookies or changes in the mobile IDs for advertising, this is coming at us as an industry. And we have to understand what caused this in the first place. Think about if you were going to a consumer electronics store and you looked at a television, talk to the salesperson, and then you say, okay, I'm going to walk away now. I'm going to go have lunch with my partner. And then you're having lunch, and that same salesman sits down, pulls up a chair, and says, hey, what about that TV? You'd be like, it's a bit strange. Thank you, I don't want to talk about it now. And then you go later and you're browsing a website and your phone rings and it's the same salesman going, hey, what about that TV? That's what cookies were doing. They were following you around the internet and then popping up because you maybe looked at cat food once, but you don't own a cat. That is the industry's fault. And actually, the death of the cookie, the death of these IDs that track you is just going to be reality, which means, as Jessica was saying in her presentation, we need to move towards having our own data as companies. First-party data, zero-party data, but it's not going to be third-party data that's going to save you anymore. And it's a real issue because if you haven't been building up your database, if you haven't invested in a consumer data platform, you have a small window to start doing this. And some of the recommendations would be hire the right talent. This is not something that you're necessarily going to figure out by yourselves if you do not hire digital marketing experts. And also, when you do hire these experts, don't silo them in the organization. Put them in a corner as a special group called digital marketing experts. They should just be marketing experts. And the most important thing is that if you need to, hire vendors, partners, consultants to accelerate this, because this is a real issue. And it's been driven because of industry practices that probably were not healthy and are finally coming to an end. And so for travel, it's going to be important to build your own consumer database and be able to actually keep driving acquisition.
Yeah, but Ken, just going deeper into some of the points that you raised, right? Many of the travel companies, travel businesses are SMEs, right?
Yeah.
Would they have the resources to invest in getting first-party data And would they have access to the digital talents that you were speaking about?
Yeah, it's definitely a great question, and the answer is probably not. But that's where they can partner. I mean, I'm going to plug Grab, obviously, because the part of Grab that I run is Grab Ads. But whether it's us or other partners, you do need to partner with folks who do have this data and can help you reach your customers. And so SMEs are not left in the dark necessarily, but there's also things an SME can do. You can start a database. It's not that complicated to begin collecting data. The one advice though is don't collect data unless you know what you're going to do with that data. Just don't collect it for collection's sake, because then you're going to end up with a very unstructured database that you don't really know how to make use of. So again, there's lots of online learning courses on this. You don't have to hire a high-powered consultant necessarily. There's a lot of digital natives out there, out of school who are happy to help you.
Thanks. Maybe to Arthur, right? I know Far East has been quite active in terms of setting up your loyalty program, in getting your fans to join the program, and that's one way to collect first-party data, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter whether you're big or small. And I think what Ken says is absolutely true. While you are, and we've done this, I wouldn't say recently, we did this about 3 years ago, where we really made a concerted effort to actually take control and grow our database for the purpose of wanting to have first-party data. And it's actually not so difficult if you think about what is it you want to do with the data. Number one, you want to recognize your customers who book you directly. That's very, very important, because in our business, I would say that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity whereby hotels have the opportunity or have the upper hand in that the market is ready to book you directly rather than through an online travel agent. And the opportunity to then relate with your customer, I think it's worthwhile to focus on that. So to recognize your customer, and the other thing is to make sure that the best rates are available on your website, or the best deal is available on your website, and to take control of the distribution of how your wholesale rates are being distributed, and to make sure they're distributed correctly, to manage those rates. If you can do these two things, that you recognize your customer and to ensure that the best rates are available on your website, you'll be able to have the customer come to you directly and therefore learn to profile the type of customers that you're currently getting, what is successful. And I suppose marketing is all about trying to find the right customer for the product you have. Now, we have a spectrum of lifestyle brands, and we try not to be all things to all people. So we have a brand that caters to the value sensitive. We have a brand that caters to the wellness-oriented. We have a brand that caters to those people who want to get to know their neighborhood better. We have a brand that caters to those people we even have a brand for people who are difficult, what I call the non-conformist. The people who says, why must breakfast stop at 11 o'clock? I want to have breakfast and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Or why do I have to check in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Why can't I check in now? And I'm not going to pay for the night before. So we have brands to cater to a spectrum, and in order to market it correctly, you've got to have the database. So that's what we have done. So it doesn't matter if you're not a huge international player, you can start small.
Thanks, Arthur. Ben, when we spoke about this earlier yesterday, right, you mentioned that for Mandai Wildlife Group, having a loyalty program may not be that critical for overseas guests. I know you have one, Friends of Zoo, for locals, which is very, very popular. So does that mean that this cookieless future is less of an issue for you guys as an attraction operator?
We go back to first principles, which is that the death of the cookie and the increased focus on privacy, and indeed the commitment of players like Google and Apple towards privacy, is a good thing, right? So over its decades of over the decades of evolution, I think the internet has progressively become, to many of us, progressively creepier. Right? You feel that you're being tracked, there's eyes watching, privacy is being compromised. And the extent to which trust is restored, I think is a net positive. Now, the downside of it is that your digital marketing, your ROI, your CPAs are potentially going to be impacted if you have relied on those tools over the past period. So I wouldn't say that we are not impacted by the death of the cookie. We are adapting to it in terms of finding ways to encourage and to give incentives and real reasons for Singapore residents to sign up with us. You mentioned loyalty programs. So loyalty programs for overseas guests are a little bit less crucial because we are not an airline, we are not a hotel group. The only way you can consume our product is to physically be in Singapore and physically go to Mandai. Right? So the chances of a visitor from the US, like Jessica, visiting us more than once per year is not high at all. Right? So we're under no illusions there. But on the other hand, the affinity that we are able to build, building affinity with the local resident is absolutely crucial. So we do that through two things. Number one, we attach, rather than asking people to put a tick to sign up for the marketing database, we attach utility to it. Right? So why should you allow us to contact you? Why should you allow us to reach out to add you to the marketing database? Well, you do that so that you get a 10% discount on all expenditure in our parks. You do that so that you get a discount if you visit us on the weekdays, right? As a local would do, and that is something that we found has been incredibly effective. The second part, which is a strategy that cuts through most of what we do, is to focus on what we believe is our unfair competitive advantage, which really is content. Right, so if you think about the sort of content and video content that people engage with most on social media, on Facebook, you've got cat videos and blah, 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 right? We've got cats, big cats. We have tiger cubs, we have a lion cub, we have a panda, we have a panda cub. Right, so how do you use that? How do you package that? How do you represent that? How do you make it compelling? Is something that we have been on a journey on, and that's proven to be incredibly valuable for us to do.
Thank you. This next question is really just for anyone, right? In terms of customers right now, they're consumers, they are increasingly concerned about privacy issues. They're increasingly concerned and get turns off when the marketing message becomes too personalized because they think that then the brands might have too much information on them, right? So, what's your advice to our audience to a better approach to personalization and where to draw the line? Should maybe Jessica?
I can give one very direct recommendation. It's just to be upfront about it, be transparent about it, communicate why you're asking for an email address and what you're using it for, and then do make a suggestion like, hey, there's options if you want to unsubscribe, or we'll promise we only will contact you once for XYZ reason. So just to be very communicative about that, be transparent, and again, just be that trustworthy partner so people like to sign up for you and understand the circumstances and aren't surprised when all of a sudden they get like 10 emails the next day, because no one wants that. But yeah, just very communicative about the approach.
I think there needs to be a value exchange between the brand, the platform, and the consumer. And what I mean by that is you just can't keep expecting people to give you information about themselves if you do not give them value back. And so I'll give you an example. We have a loyalty program, Grab Rewards. So how do we use that in terms of a value exchange? Well, we have rewarded ads. What's a rewarded ad? You watch a video, short, 30 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and then you get Grab points for watching that video. That's a value exchange because you use those points for your next meal, your next ride, or maybe you go to the loyalty program and you redeem the points. So there's a value exchange there between the consumer and the brand. I think we have to think about the value that you add so that the consumer is not thinking, oh, this is just about privacy and invading my privacy. I'm actually getting something back. And if I don't share this with the brand or the platform, then they will not be able to reward me, or they will not be able to find the right content that really appeals to me. Because at the end of the day, good advertising should never feel like an ad. It should just feel like useful content.
I have a slightly more basic, less sophisticated approach to that, which is I try to sign up for everything. I sign up for everything because in my earlier years as a marketer, I want to see how people market to me. And I want to see how my own organization's markets to customers. And the second something appears creepy, you nick it, right? So I think we could brief our teams and our agencies as much as we want. But at the end of the day, I think we do need stuff that passes the sniff test. Right, so it's kind of like eating your own dog food, right? So you just have to be out there, have the mindset of the customer. What appeals to you? What are the kinds of messages you want to receive, and what are the kinds of messages that you don't?
Thank you. Maybe we can take some questions from the audience. There's a question on cookie. Maybe we should raise it up to the screen. The demise of cookie-based marketing has resulted in using walled garden platforms, such as Grab, to target new customers. What more can we do to target new customers?
Rank last.
Maybe Ken, I mean, in terms of
Yeah,
walled gardens, you work with a lot of partners.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the word targeting sounds quite, bad itself. Like, it's really, again, back to how can you add value. Walled gardens do have a lot of first-party data. So obviously working with walled gardens has an advantage if you can leverage their anonymized data to find your target audience. And so, again, it sounds too self-serving to say work with Grab. There's other walled gardens out there. And besides, we don't think of ourselves as a walled garden. We're a garden, but we have little gates that you can come in and out of. You just can't leave with the silverware and napkins and stuff. And so we're a hybrid there. With our partners, we do allow access to data. It's always anonymized. It's never an individual. It's never personal, data. But the reality is that privacy has become a real issue for consumers. So you're going to have to find ways to either build your own data and use that efficiently, or you're going to have to, if you can't afford to do that, you'll have to partner with platforms and players who can help you in that area.
Thank you. Maybe another question on loyalty program, right? On approach of engaging, developing own loyalty ecosystem.
Sorry, can I?
Sorry. Yeah,
before we move on, right? I think that, again, first principles of targeting new customers is to have differentiated products. As a zoo, the opportunity and the challenge we have is that we are kind of a natural product for children and families with young kids. And that's a good thing, right? We have a natural audience. The problem statement is that some of the world's largest markets are aging, right? So Japan's aging, China's aging. The median age in Singapore is 42, the median age, right? According to PMO figures, there'll be more people above the age of 60 than under the age of 25 by 2030, right? So the question for us is how do we broaden so that we are not dependent on the shrinking subset of the audience. And we do that by having new offerings, right? So we came up with different products targeted at different people, and you just go to market in a differentiated manner, right? So that, and then the mechanisms that you use just becomes a channel decision, and the partners that you leverage becomes a channel decision, right? So we've got fine dining products where we partner with whiskey companies that don't target kids, I would hope, and those have been incredibly successful as well.
Thank you. Yeah, just back to this question on the approach of engaging and developing own loyalty ecosystem. Do we foresee customer fatigue in joining decentralized ecosystems? Any thoughts on mitigation? I mean, maybe Arthur?
Wow, this is a very deep question. I would like to answer it not too differently from what Ben has stated. I think, in terms of talking about a loyalty ecosystem, I think the offer that Far East Hospitality has is we dominate the mid-tier section, but the mid-tier customer is not homogeneous. So our ecosystem consists of how do we offer different brands for different lifestyles, right? And so to the point of differentiation, I have a different spin to it, and that is in that mid-tier section where you offer different lifestyle, what problem does each brand serve to solve? So your brands must solve a customer's problem, and different brands help to solve different customer problems. So we try to look for the pain point of what is the target group of customer. We look for the pain point of what is the target customer group, and then we apply as much of our resources as possible to focus in on that, to solve that one problem. So for example, the Village brand solves the problem of Singapore is an expensive place, and I want to enjoy as much of it as possible, but I have a budget. So how can the hotel help me stretch my budget? So that is a problem that the hotel brand tries to solve. In the case of, say, the Barracks Hotel, the problem that the Barracks Hotel tries to solve is resorts are wonderful, but resorts can be very boring. So how can I, as a resort, help you to get from where you are, enjoying a margarita by the pool, to be in the center of the buzz in the middle of the CBD within a time frame of 15 minutes? So these are, this is the approach that is a little bit more traditional than trying to use technology to mitigate. It is the product itself to mitigate by solving problems for the consumer.
Thanks, Arthur. Maybe moving on to our last topic about metaverse, right? Maybe a question for Jessica, given that she's the expert in this field. Not everyone has the financial muscle of Samsung, right? So what would be your advice to the audience here, in terms of making the first few pilots of experiments in this space? Where should they be actively looking at in terms of engaging this very open area of metaverse?
Yeah, that's a great question, and agree. It doesn't always need to be a massive million-dollar investment by any means. There's many ways of getting there. There is no one metaverse, first of all. There is multiple places that are currently considered part of it. So there's ways of just simply being there, creating an avatar that could be a branded avatar, and just exploring worlds, or it could be by way of integrating NFTs, non-fungible tokens, as part of a loyalty program, for example. To connect with a customer, and that is considered Web3 and will ultimately lead back to metaverse as well. So there's many ways to also, from the advertising perspective, create touch points, integrate turnkey solutions that are very easily adjusted to like a platform, metaverse considered platform like Roblox or Fortnite, for example. Very, very different than creating your own ecosystem within an existing world. So there's many different ways of getting there. It's just a matter of, first of all, I think defining what the goal is, like why would you want to be there? And then what does it need to look like, right? Is this even relevant? How does it connect to the consumer? What do you want to get out of it? The typical questions you would ask for any other activation. And then you can level it up and see and scale if needed, but it doesn't always need to be a big investment. So there's many ways of getting there.
Thanks, Jessica. Maybe for the, Ben, yes?
Yeah, it feels a little bit like we have seen this script before with the dot-com boom, where the metaverse today is probably one of the most overused terms, including by a lot of people who don't actually understand it, right? So we went through the cycle of, we are a leading edge company now because we have a website, okay, right? To not knowing what to do about it and then to refining it along the way. I remember the conversation yesterday when I think Ken talked about the Gartner hype cycle. We're kind of riding on a high before reality sets in. My view of this is that we have to be quite disciplined in terms of deciding what we are good at and what we are not, right? So technology at its current phase is a little bit of a go big or go home, right? So you may have 20 projects, and if one works out, it'll pay for everything. Now, the question we have to ask is, can we as a business, or can small businesses afford to pay for 20 projects, right? If the answer is no, then you have to kind of unpack it to look at what are the components in our day-to-day of our offering that will make us valuable to the big players of the future, or that can be leveraged should the technology get mainstream in the future. So from our perspective, we see two categories. Number one is content, which we have already talked about. Second is rethinking of how we evolve marketing moving from one-to-one to a more community-centered approach. Right? So transactions today, when you go to a website, the interaction is kind of like going to a shop by yourself. There's this one person in the shop with a shopkeeper that knows you very well, and I give you this discount, that discount. Oh, you have that card, let me give you this discount. The metaverse interaction really is, you're going to be influenced by the people beside you, right? So if I go to a travel agency and Arthur's standing there, and if he recommends a certain hotel, I will take it very seriously because you're from the industry, right? You will know better than me. But how do I know he's not an ad? So the trust issue would have to be resolved, and the discipline of marketing, how you think about marketing towards providing incentives without distortion for cross-referrals and recommendations becomes more important than ever.
Thanks, Ben. Arthur, you?
No, I've got nothing to add. I'm just nodding wisely. I'm just nodding wisely to what he said.
Is Arthur an app? Is that what?
It may be an ad, right?
An ad. Oh, okay. Thinking back to the travel industry, and I think there might be folks out there that are thinking, metaverse, maybe not that good for travel, right? Travel is about the 5 senses, sight, sound, motion, all that. Metaverse really only has 2 of those, sort of sight, sound. And so if you think about the metaverse, before you go build a digital twin of your entire hotel property or even the zoo, although that could be quite fun, you probably want to find something more adjacent to your current business objectives. And so if you think about travel, if you have a destination that people are imagining like what it would be like, or even your hotel room, you say we have the biggest bathroom in Singapore or the best bathtubs or the best whatever, you could have virtual reality of the room. Let people walk the room at least, understand that it's the biggest room or the best bathtub. That is just top of the funnel engagement that leads to a transaction or a conversion. And so that's how I would think of using the metaverse in travel, is a sort of lead generation to the experience. And then of course when they're actually in the destination, then you probably switch from VR to more augmented reality. How do you enhance the experience? For example, we talked yesterday, I'd love to go to the zoo, put on some glasses, and then see information about the elephant. What's the elephant's name? What does the elephant eat? How old is the elephant? There's all sorts of cool things you could do.
Just riding on the point about augmented reality, I mean, as I think Keith shared earlier on, we actually have already developed a suite of about 100 AR assets. They are right now in our tourism information hub. So this is really meant to provide easy access for the industry to use some of these assets to start thinking about building up their AR or their mixed reality experience, right? So do use the TIH platform as you go about experimenting or embarking on some of the pilots for the metaverse.
And can I just add that I think technology provides unprecedented opportunities, right? So through the pandemic, we have been able to reach, through virtualization, 4 times the amount of our annual visitors, and we're actually quite a big zoo, so that's actually a pretty big number. We have been able to reach customers who will probably never visit Singapore, right? In a secondary city, in a primary school in India, or may not visit Singapore for 2 or 3 decades, right? We have also been able to reach out on more community basis, and this actually struck home during circuit breaker, where I think all of us felt pretty confined, right? And then we got reminded that there are people who don't have a choice, right? So we were able to reach bedridden patients in elderly care facilities. When Minds had a lockdown, we reached out almost immediately to people with disabilities who would not be able to visit for a long time, right? So I think the role that technology plays is that it is an empowering tool that really enables us to go deep into different segments and different times and different places. And there's no reason to believe that the metaverse isn't going to be the same.
Thanks, Ben.
I think if I can just bring it back to what we are discussing about, which is how do we market Singapore in this recovery, I think it's important to actually give different layers and different textures to Singapore. It's just not an island city, but different precincts or districts have got different appeal, and to tell stories of the different precincts and the different district. And I think from a hotel viewpoint, a hotel does have a large role to play in educating our guests on what is the history or what is the attraction or what is the stories behind the precinct. And augmented reality does play a very, very big role in helping us tell those stories.
Thanks. One last question, just a quick response. Just rounding back to Jessica's earlier point about bucket lists. What is the one thing that Singapore can do to really get our destination into the bucket list of travelers worldwide? I'll let you guys sink that in for a while. Maybe I'll just make 2 public service announcements in the interim. I think one is in terms of helping the industry scale up their experience and expertise in looking at some of the new platforms. We do have a masterclass series that's continued from last year. So one of the major topics that will be engaging this year will be looking at TikTok to really help our industry think about using these platforms to reach the consumers. The other one is the marketing partnership program, which many of you have written up to us to ask whether this program can be extended. Well, the good news is that we are extending this until the end of 2022. So if you have committed funding that you have already received, MPP grant from STB and you have not utilized it to date, you can actually plan in terms of this execution of these programs for the rest of this year. The only change that we are making is that because we are pivoting back to international recovery, we would like the industry to utilize the unutilized funds for MPP for international recovery efforts. All right? So I think that's the letter should go up to the industry tomorrow, and you guys will be receiving this, and hopefully that will help you give some certainty in terms of the funding support that you can get from STB in some of the marketing activities for the rest of the year. Right. So back to the question, what is the one thing that we can bring Singapore up to the bucket list of destinations?
You're looking at me. Okay, so
everyone will have a go.
I don't have an exciting answer.
Trying to avoid eye contact, right?
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. This is my first time at this conference, and what a great platform for achieving that objective, getting the industry together, all the great activities that STB is doing. These are the things that ultimately will get Singapore on the bucket list as people experiment with all of these ideas and use the resources that you've provided. I do feel, though, that Singapore is already on the track of being in an excellent place to visit. Singapore does so well at promoting itself that we need to get our mojo back. And I think that's coming, and the pandemic is turning endemic, and I have no doubt that Singapore will be on the bucket list, as it always has been.
Thank you. Ben?
I know this is not what you meant, but I feel there should be a sense of urgency, desire to visit, right? So from my perspective, a bucket list is an aspirational. I might visit next year, or 5 years later, or maybe 20 years later, right? So there are places in the world that are green, pristine, beautiful, but no urgency to go, right? So from our perspective, it is really seizing upon what is unique and precious and special, our sense of heritage. What we do well, we should continue to do and really play up, as STB has been doing, the undiscovered gems that visitor would find insightful and mind-opening. And really, as what Minister of State and Keith has alluded to earlier, we need a more decisive opening, right? So PTTs, I think there's still an element of friction, and we are still limited at 75% of operating capacity, which means that we are constrained from really going to market with really aggressive promotions to pack the parks, right? So when the time is right, I'm sure that the measures will be relaxed, but we really look forward to that happening.
Thanks.
I think, when you look at what is the attractiveness of Singapore, you've got to juxtapose it against the other world cities or global cities like New York or London and Tokyo. And if you look at Tokyo, it's a wonderful place for food, Japanese cuisine. If you look at London, it's full of history and culture. And if you look at New York, it's just full of energy and buzz and the center of entertainment. Singapore can position itself, I think, as a futuristic utopia. Because, if you were to be living in many other places in the world, we look in and view what Singapore has to offer. It's this amazing little place that is where everything works, and it's what you hope your city will be sometime in the future. You hope that you will sometime, that your government or your city planners can get themselves organized to create such a livable and wonderful place sometime in the future, and you can experience the future now by just visiting Singapore.
Thanks, Arthur. It's great I used the word utopia, because I remember 10 years ago when we were doing a sort of a brand scan study of Singapore itself, the word utopia was the one that people sort of assigned to Singapore, especially those who have been to Singapore before and really like the ease and the sense of empowerment that they get when they come to Singapore. Maybe Jessica, just to finish off with you.
I'm going to round up, but actually bring it back to the people of Singapore, coming right from the global perspective, from the outside. I'm always most curious about the people, and Singapore is such a unique spot, right there in the middle. It's such a multicultural hub. There's so many unique stories you can tell, and they're so interesting. I want to hear about the people and the stories of the people that may have been changed over the last 2 years, but I want to hear more about the people.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
for your time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us to the afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah.